car stood in the middle of the yard, quite unattended, the stable helps and other hangers-on being all at their dinner. Toad walked slowly round it, inspecting, criticising, musing deeply. I wonder, he said to himself presently, I wonder if this sort of car starts easily. Next moment, hardly knowing how it came about, he found he had hold of the handle and was turning it. As the familiar sound broke forth and the old passion seized on Toad and completely mastered him body and soul, and as if in a dream he found himself somehow seated in the driver's seat, and as if in a dream he pulled the lever and swung the car round the yard and out through the archway. And as if in a dream, all sense of right and wrong, all fear of obvious consequences seemed temporarily suspended. He increased his pace, and as the car devoured the street and leapt forth on the high road through the open country, he was only conscious that he was Toad once more, Toad at his best and highest, Toad the terror, the traffic queller, the lord of the lone trail, before whom all must give way or be smitten into nothingness and everlasting night. He chanted as he flew, and the car responded with sonorous drone. The miles were eaten up under him, and he spent he knew not whither, fulfilling his instincts, living his hour, reckless of what might come to him. To my mind, observed the chairman of the bench of magistrates cheerfully, the only difficulty that presents itself in this otherwise very clear case is how we can possibly make it sufficiently hot for the incorrigible rogue and hardened ruffian whom we see cowering in the dock before us. Let me see. He has been found guilty on the clearest evidence, first of stealing a valuable motor car, secondly of driving to the public danger, and thirdly of gross impertinence to the rural police. Mr. Clerk, will you tell us, please, what is the very stiffest penalty we can impose for each of these offences, without, of course, giving the prisoner the benefit of any doubt, because there isn't any. The clerk scratched his nose with his pen. Some people would consider, he observed, that stealing the motor car was the worst offence, and so it is, but cheating the police undoubtedly carries the severest penalty, and so it ought. Supposing you were to say 12 months for the theft, which is mild, 3 years for the furious driving, which is lenient, and 15 years for cheek, which is pretty bad sort of cheek, judging by what we've heard from the witness box, even if you only believe 1/10 part of what you've heard, and I never believe more myself, those figures, if added together correctly, tot up to 19 years. First rate, said the chairman. So you had better make it round 20 years and be on the safe side, concluded the clerk. An excellent suggestion, said the chairman approvingly. Prisoner, pull yourself together and try to stand up straight. It's going to be 20 years for you this time, and mind, if you appear before us again upon any charge whatever, we shall have to deal with you very seriously. Then the brutal minions of the law fell upon the hapless Toad, loaded him with chains and dragged him from the courthouse, shrieking, praying, protesting across the marketplace, where the playful populace, always as severe upon detected crimes as they are sympathetic and helpful when one is merely wanted, assailed him with jeers, carrots and popular catchwords, past hooting schoolchildren, their innocent faces lit up with the pleasure they derive from the sight of a gentleman in difficulties, across the hollow-sounding drawbridge, below the spiky portcullis, under the frowning archway of grim old castle, those ancient towers soared high overhead, past guardrooms full of grinning soldiery off duty, past sentries who coughed in a horrible sarcastic way, because that is as much as a sentry on post dare to show his contempt and abhorrence for crime, up time-worn winding stairs, past men-at-arms in casket and corselet of steel, darting threatening looks through their visors, across courtyards where mastiffs strained at their leash and pawed in the air to get at him, past ancient wardens, their harebells leant against the wall, dozing over a pastry and flagon of brown ale, on, past the rack chamber and the thumbscrew room, past the turning that led to the private scaffold, till they reached the door of the grimmest dungeon that lay in the heart of the innermost keep. There at last they paused, where an ancient jailer sat fingering a bunch of mighty keys. Odd Bobskin, said the sergeant of the police, taking off his helmet and wiping his forehead. Rouse the old loon and take over from us this vile toad, a criminal of deepest guilt and matchless artfulness and resource. Watch and ward him with all thy skill, and mark thee well, greybeard, should aught untoward befall, the old head shall answer for this, and the murrain of both of them. The gaoler nodded grimly, laying his withered hand on the shoulder of the miserable toad. The rusty key creaked in the lock, and the great door clanged behind them, and Toad was a helpless prisoner in the remotest of the best guarded keep of the stoutest castle in all the length and breadth of merry England.